Hey, what's up, folks? This is David Wood, and I wanted to do a quick video. Now, there's a little bit of background. Let me just move my dog plate there. It looks a little wacko in the background. But this video, I wanted to do, talking about whether Islam is good or evil. Now, I have a very different philosophy on this. And again, who am I? For those of you who know me, I'm David Wood. God told me that about 2 years ago, I'm Messiah ben David. So part of the job of Messiah ben David is actually to create peace between nations. But the question is like, how do you create the peace between nations, and how do you actually get people working together? You do it by acknowledging people's various belief systems and acknowledging people's various spirituality, and by acknowledging the goods in all of it, and let them have their own way and let them have their own systems and kind of stay out of their business. You know what I mean? As long as they're not interfering with our business, and you stay out of their business. Does that make sense? And so in any case, how would this apply to something like Islam? Well, it would come from understanding the religion of Islam. And now I'm going to tell you, first of all, Islamic people are, let's talk about the good in Islam, okay? What's the good in Islam? Well, the good in Islam is that Islam, for example, is a very, very, very righteous religion. Like, if you look at the righteousness of the Islamic people, I will tell you that, in my opinion, there are no other people on earth that are as righteous as the Islamic people. I don't think that this is personally, and call this a criticism, call it what you will. I think that a lot of the Jewish peoples are also very righteous. I do not think they're generally as obedient to their beliefs as Islamic people are to theirs, right? I think that Islamic people are generally more obedient. I think they're genetically wired like that after lots of generations of having very pure hearts. And I think that they're like that for a reason. But what do I mean by that? Well, let's take for example, who follows the laws in their book better, right? Is it Islamic people, Jewish people, Christians, Mormons? Who is it? Out of those three groups, I'm telling you, it is the people of Islam in general. Now, this is not always true, because there's always righteous peoples in every group, in every religion, and every part of the world. However, there really is not more righteous group of people out there than the Islamic nation. They're beautiful people. They're very righteous. They love their families, and they honor the Quran. Now, here's the thing that, I've been preaching this message of, and I'm about to start getting in front of audiences now, because I'm working on some stuff behind the scenes that is going to be awesome. So, I'm going to go out there and really start making a big splash. But the reality is that if people look at things and they always look at the negative, they're going to get lost in their message, right? So they're not going to really know. For example, like I'm not paying attention to what I'm saying here. I'm just getting late. I'm a little bit tired, and I'm a little bit rambly sometimes when I'm tired. So I apologize about the rambling. However, the Islamic peoples, right? Like me, give me an example. I was in England. Okay. I was going to talk about people that focus on the negative of radical Islam, right? Like the negative of Islam, which is radical Islam, right? And is radical Islam really a negative, or yes, I think it is, right? I don't think that generally, I don't think radical Islam is really doing the best job following the laws of the Quran. However, sometimes I do think that they do a great job, and I think there's also many righteous peoples in these the radical Islam people. I think they're very righteous people, and I think that the radical Islamic terrorists, really what they want is they want peace, right? Now, I'm not saying I'm not condoning what they do. Obviously, I don't think that Gandhi said that you don't fight for peace, you peace for peace, because if you fight, you're creating the antithesis of peace. Does this make sense? And so I think there's a better way to have peace, but I think that they just want peace. I think that they want peace and prosperity for everyone, and they see something that, for example, that we're not doing. So we don't listen to the good heart in many of them, right? And we're just seeing the darkness in them. Now, once again, I don't agree with radical Islam. However, if radical Islam was refocused, for example, to become like, if they formed alliances with governments or whatever, and then radical Islam went in to help fight wars, that'd be a much better use of radical Islam, and they would be war heroes. You know what I mean? Because they're so willing to die for Allah. You know what I mean? So there's if that was refocused, there would actually be very little that was wrong with it, because we're protecting humanity. Like if there's a really big threat, and you send and it's like going to hurt a lot of people if it gets out, and then you send radical Islam off of it. I mean, they'll wipe it off the face of the earth. Like God talked about doing in the Old Testament and whatnot. And so, I don't condone that. They want conversion, not peace. Islam calls for converting Islam or death. I'm going to go read the whole Quran and whatnot, right? I'm going to go read the whole thing. I'm not going to do it for probably a couple months, and then I'll comment on that, because I could comment like this on the Torah, but the Quran is not my specialty. I think that is taking out of context. I got that that's what the Quran says, but have you read the whole thing, and do you know the context? You know what I mean? Now here's the reality with Islam. Okay, Islam is one of the religions of the 144,000. I've mentioned this actually many times, that there's not one religion, there's 144,000 religions. And for example, in Islam, okay, like there would be peace between Israel on Islam if the Jewish nation the Quran says you should get a tattoo over your heart if you're a man, okay, and walk on the other side of the street, and people get offended. They say that's anti-Semitic, but then the Quran, I believe that the Quran, not necessarily, I don't know if it's the Quran or the teachings of Muhammad, is where the Merkaba symbol, for example, comes from. I believe that was actually a symbol of the Quran, right? Well, so the Merkaba symbol is the Star of David that's on the Jewish flag, right? And I believe that I can't really find where the Star of David. I think it's kind of always existed, but it's kind of like a gift from Allah or whatever, right? And so if people get a Star of David tattoo on their heart, if they're a man and they walk on the other side of the street, what would actually happen then? First of all, the Islamic nation wouldn't care and wouldn't be trying to kill them. There'd be no persecution between the peoples. And it's all just because of the pride in people's hearts that they don't have some sort of wiggle room on acceptance policies with things like this, right? If people stopped seeing it as persecution and bigotry, and instead they looked at it as these are people that are have very pure genetics, they're very righteous, and they're more prone to, I think they're more prone to intensity a lot of times. I've met a lot of Islamic people, and they're very intense peoples. Like Shakir Hussain, who's been my friend for years, a fantastic guy. In my opinion, in a lot of ways, makes lots of money and stuff like that. He's a great Islamic leader. And there's a lot of Islamic thought leaders out there that are very, very, very righteous people. And here's the thing, right? Here's the thing. People would leave each other's alone if we just followed, if we were willing to follow each other's laws. Does that make sense? So again, there's not one religion, there's 144,000 religions. So for example, in Islam, people say, well, what about Jesus and the Quran? How can you say this if you're a Christian? Well, let me explain it. Okay. So Jesus, right, is the son of Elohim. And it says in the Quran that Allah has no son. And people think that Allah is Elohim because of fallen language only. They're not the same being. They're two gods, right? You say, well, one's a false god. No, he's one of the gods, right? Look how righteous the Nation of Islam is, and look at how much positive they do in the world and the places that they're doing. And why don't we look at that for a while? There was just a very unfortunate some anti-Islam people that went and shot up some mosques or whatever in the last few days. And my heart goes out to all the families that experienced a loss. And I'll tell you guys that more attacks like this on the people of God are going to be coming in the future. Okay, they're going to be coming in large scale numbers. Attacks to the people of God, and it won't just be Islamic peoples. It will be Christian peoples. It will be all sorts of different churches out there. And they'll go after a lot of various people. Probably not so much the Buddhists, because like Buddhists are so peaceful. You know what I mean? But the reason people do that is because they misunderstand, for example, what the Quran is actually really all about, which is righteousness. I'll tell you that Allah Mazarekt is the Elohim of righteousness. Now, he works for the Father, right? He works for him. So, in other words, Allah, for example, in the celestial kingdom, he has no wife. Why doesn't he have a wife when everybody else has wives in the celestial kingdom? Well, and a lot of people are like, well, you know, I don't know about that. And it's like, no, I promise people are married in the celestial kingdom. The Garden of Eden was created, Adam and Eve were together, and Adam knew his wife, and they were in the Garden of Eden. This is an eternal concept, okay? And it's for the fallenness of man that man does not understand because of trickiness of language and scripture what the celestial kingdom is really all about, which is about multiplying and replenishing the earth. It's about growing plants and growing gardens and growing trees and a man tilling the soil, right? The celestial kingdom is all about humility. It's all about love. It's all about kingdoms. It's all about businesses. You know, there's businesses there. You buy, you sell, you trade, you know, and so, you know, the reality is with all this stuff that I'm mentioning is that like in heaven, okay, there's not two gods. There's 144,000 gods. Okay. That's how many there are. That's how many Elohim Tetragrammaton there are at any given current time. So the Elohim Tetragrammaton are always a trillion years in the future, looking backwards in time, and people in current time are always in submission to the gods, and they're only gods when they're watching backwards in time, right? So we just live as people. We don't brag about being the gods. We probably do, but like we're really just the people, but we're the gods backwards in time. In current time, we are actually the humble servants of the Elohim Tetragrammaton. So there's nothing, for example, that bothers me at all about the Quran. There's nothing. You say, well, you know, they say, you know, like people do things like they destroy utterly off the face of the earth, this and that, and this and that in the Quran. Okay. So does the Bible all over the place, right? So there's things in the Quran, for example, that people do, like where they face Mecca, that giant cube that Abraham built. And that cube was actually built in the artifact tomb of the ancients, and it is a very, very, very strange object, and it can only be really utilized by Allah. He's the only one that can really direct that energy and use that cube. But it's actually a piece of celestial technology. Because Shakir Hussain is the Islamic Messiah, I've mentioned that many times. So there's many messiahs. You know, he's the Islamic one, for example. Okay, and so in any case, you know, everybody faces this cube thing. It was built by Abraham, and they pray like 3 times a day towards that. Well, in the Bible, you've got Daniel where he stopped and got on his knees and faced Jerusalem and prayed towards Jerusalem 3 times a day, right? So, like, okay, so the Jewish nation doesn't generally do that, okay? A lot of them do. Now, I want to be clear. Like, there's a lot of people in the Jewish nation that do things like this, but, like, they get down on their knees. Like, if you go to, I was in Leicester, England, right? And there's the faithful Islamic people, okay? Faithful Islamic people, they would literally, like, carry around a mat. I'm not joking, right? They would carry it around. And then, like, they would hear their watch beep. They would drop on their knees. They would face Mecca, and they would pray. In front of everybody, they don't care. This is the commandments of the Islamic people, right? This is the commandments of the Islamic people. Now, I was actually let into a home when I was on my Mormon mission, you know, which is the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. They no longer like being called Mormons, but, you know, I've always called it that. So it's just like, it's going to be a while for this name to unglue in my brain, right? So when I was on a mission for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, like when I was 19 years old, I was knocking around on September 11th, 2000 or whatever it was, right? And I was knocking on doors. Okay, you know, 2001, I think it was. I can't remember ever what year that is. 9/11. Yeah. Anyway, September 11th. Somebody could remind me of the year, right? I'm knocking on doors, right? I'm knocking on doors, and in an Islamic neighborhood, and they would always let us in. They didn't agree with us necessarily all the time. They were generally very peaceful. I only had one Islamic person ever get a little aggressive with me, right? Because I wasn't agreeing with him. Only one out of all of them that I talked to, and I talked to literally hundreds of them. I talked to hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of Islamic people. And they would let us in the homes, so we would go into their homes, and like, you know, they were one of the only peoples I didn't really it wouldn't even really matter to me if they joined the Mormon church or not. Like, I wouldn't even, they were so righteous. I just didn't care. I was like, I think they should just stay in that religion because I think it's safer for them because of their family systems and whatnot. But so I'm in this home with this guy with like multiple wives, and they're covering their faces and whatever. And like 30 Islamic people are gathered around, and the Twin Towers get collapsed into by, you know, the bird of prey or whatever it was. I don't know. The airplane, you know, smashed into the Twin Towers, and it's like, all right, as you know, the big scheme concocted by, you know, the elite really is what it was. And so in any case, so we could, you know, put the TSA into place, right? Yeah. They do it just to antagonize the Jews. Yeah, Islam. No, Jerusalem is never even mentioned in the Quran because the Quran is the book of Islam. He says Jerusalem is never even mentioned in the Quran. Islam says it's a holy site. They do it just to antagonize the Jews. No, the teachings of Muhammad in the Quran are that we need to honor. Hey, what's up, Leah Bell? We need to honor. Good to see you. That's Andrew's wife, right? We need to honor, right? The Quran teaches us to honor all of the prophets. They consider Buddha a prophet. They consider Moses a prophet. Okay? They say to honor all of the teachings of the prophets, to honor all of the teachings of all the prophets. That's what the Quran says, right? So here they are, and they're okay learning about and honoring the teachings of the Torah. They're actually okay with that because they consider Moses to be like the greatest of the prophets. You know, not for them perhaps, but Moses is the greatest of the prophets of, for example, of the Jewish nation, right? Moses. You say, well, what about Jesus? Well, Jesus was the Savior. Moses was the greatest of the prophets, right? And so, because he revealed the Torah, which is the most important book in the entire universe. So they honor Jerusalem because they honor Moses. Now you say, well, what about when they're doing nasty stuff to Jerusalem? This is from both nations not listening to each other. That's what it's from. I'm telling you, it is from nations not listening to each other. That's the only reason they fight. They don't need to fight. They just need to listen to each other, right? We honor the teachings of the Quran and they honor the teachings of the Torah, right? It's a much better way. Somebody says, am I still promoting products? I'm getting ready to start selling a book of mine that I've been working. That I've got the copies headed my way, and then, you know, when I get the copies, you know, I'm going to start. You know, I'm going to start promoting my book, and then I'm going to write a book every month. And I'm going to start a network marketing book company. And so it'll be like one book a month. You say, is that going to be your weird stuff? Not all of it, but a lot of it will be very weird stuff, right? Because it's going to be books by enlightened teachers, right? Is what I'm going to do. So we'll just sell books by enlightened teachers in the in this book of the month club we're doing, right? So here's the thing, right? Is in any case, you know, we have this book of the month club thing. I'm going to sell the books. So let me go back to Islam. Okay. So Islam, for example, what do I think about Tai Lopez? I love Tai Lopez. I think Tai Lopez is a boss. You know what I mean? Tai Lopez is a boss, dude. And I'd recommend anything he sells. That guy knows what he's doing. He's rich. He's wealthy. He's got a beautiful house. He's got beautiful cars. He's Tai Lopez. He is a beautiful man. I love Tai Lopez. Okay. So, you know, Tai Lopez is great. So here's some other things about Islam that they do. Like, for example, you go to an Islamic nation. What legal system do they use there? If it's an Islamic nation. As you're hearing the music in the background, just go into deep trance. What music? What What law do they use? They use the law in the Quran. Like, for example, a lot of people are opposed to stonings, and they're like, it's so violent, and they're Christians. And the Bible says that people need to be stoned for punishment for certain sins if they don't repent, right? That's actually what it says. It says that because this eradicates the murder out of society, and then we don't need prisons for murderers. You say that's brutal. It is what it is. Because if the people don't enforce the laws, we start depending on things like police, then the people get weak and dependent. Now, we need to support the police as the people is what we need to be doing, because I love the police. I think it's one of the most important jobs in America, if not, it's in the top up there most important, if not the most, because it protects everyone, right? It keeps people following the laws. Now, however, though, right, what they do is they take, the people pick up stones and they stone the people. Right? Now, in the Islamic teaching, let me give you an example of the righteousness of the Quran. So the Bible says it's like 2 or 3 witnesses, and the Quran says it's something like 3 or 4 witnesses or 2 or 3 witnesses or something like that to convict somebody of a murder. But here's the thing. If somebody is not known as an upstanding Islamic person who is honest and like provides value to the community, right? It's got to be an honest person. They won't accept the witness of a person that has any known dishonesty. They won't even accept the witness. Right? So this is actually quite merciful if you look at it that way. Right? So anyways, the Islamic people that watch this, they're not going to probably agree that there's 144,000 Elohim, but they don't need to. They'll figure it out later, you know what I mean? When they're in the celestial kingdom, or they'll figure it out, you know, at a later point in time. But like, they don't need to know that stuff. They just need to know that I honor them. And would Islamic people ever be mad at me? No. Because I'm telling people that they should honor the Quran. I'm fine with it. Right? And then why? Because the Quran teaches you to honor the Torah. That's why. It's the teachings of the prophets. Right? We have this idea in Christianity in particular where people think that because the Bible it has Genesis to Revelation, there's not going to be any additional revelation. It's complete and utter ludicrous nonsense. There's always been prophets. There always will be prophets. And if a prophet cannot receive revelation, he's not a prophet. Right? Makes no sense. So how could you say, I know for sure the Quran isn't true like what you said? It is, I'm telling you. And so let me explain with this. So the Elohim Tetragrammaton are divided up, right? For example, Jesus is the Elohim Tetragrammaton of salvation. The Father is the Elohim Tetragrammaton of creation, right? Allah is the Elohim Tetragrammaton of what? Of righteousness. Okay, and he's incarnated too. I'm telling you that he is Shakir Hussein. Like literally. And he's the incarnated, so you don't think he's the Allah in heaven. He's just incarnated. He didn't tell me that. That's my revelation, so don't beat him up if you're Islamic. He doesn't think that. I promise he does not think that what I'm saying is true. It doesn't matter, though, because I'm honoring Islam. Tai Lopez kind of looks enlightened to me. I'd have to meet him, though. And he looks enlightened to me, I'll tell you. You know, how about Islam, how Islam treats women? It's despicable. Okay, is it really? Is it really despicable? Now, I don't agree that, for example, I don't think that women need to cover their faces in non-Islamic territories. This is an Islamic teaching, okay? I think that everyone should I think that people should be humble and cover their heads in general. I think that if people are humble and they cover their heads, if they're a man, I don't think women need to do that, right? It shows humility, and I think that that's good. But okay. Genital mutilation isn't despicable. I don't know what you're even talking about. I have to go look up what you're talking about. You know what I mean? I don't know what you're talking about. So again, I'm not the biggest expert in the world on Islam. right? But here's what I know. I know that the Islamic peoples are very righteous, loving, kind people. And you say, well, the women cover their heads. That's because the Islamic people come from a different kind of genetics as everyone else. Their genetics are like more hard with everything, right? Their genetics are they're very intense genetics. It's really not safe in the Islamic nations, okay, for women in a pure Islamic nation to walk around uncovered. It's not safe for the women. And you say, well, that's, why are they like that? They're like that because of their genetics, people. Their genetics are like that. The intensity and the hotness of their blood makes them like that. So the women in the Islamic nations, they cover themselves. Now, you say, well, they have lots of wives and whatever, right? Okay. Well, that's another example of them following their beliefs. The Bible says the man can have lots of wives too. It's fine. It's actually fine. All through the Bible, it's fine. There's never an example in the Bible when you could say that that's not okay. Because in heaven, there's more women in heaven than there is men. Now, let me explain polygamy here for a second for you. Now, I don't care if you agree with this or not, but let me explain the value of polygamy. What happens to relationships over a long time? They degrade. Why do they degrade? I'm just going to be straight. Can I talk straight? Right? Hold on a second here. Hold on a second here. So I got distracted by the comments. I'm gonna watch the comments for a second. What was I talking about? I was talking about something that I thought was important. I was explaining something about. Hold on a second. I was explaining something about the Islamic peoples and how they're separate people, right? And it's unsafe for the women to be like that. So you say, well, they have lots of wives. That's what I was talking about. So they have lots of wives. Well, here's the thing. The Torah says you can have lots of wives. The prophets say you can have lots of wives. The Mormon Church, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, they teach that you can have lots of wives, right? They don't do it now, and they only don't do it because the government would have gotten involved, and it would have hurt the church. It would have hurt their people, so they stopped doing it for that. But really, they're supposed to do it. They're Mormons, right? You say, well, what's the purpose of that? Well, in heaven, there's more women than men. There's none of this one woman with one man nonsense in heaven. There's none of it. 0 men. Because there's just too many women. And the women need to be given to a man so they can have babies. Right? There's a lot more women. A lot more women in heaven than men. The book of Isaiah says that in the last days, 7 women shall cling to one man, and they'll say, please take away our reproach. Now, here's what happens. In a normal relationship, okay, you have a relationship with somebody, and what happens? The woman stops dressing sexy. The man stops being creative. And the reason he stops is because she's not putting out as much as she used to, and he blames her, and she blames him for not treating her like it was before. They both get fat. They make excuses about it. Women stop putting perfume and makeup on themselves. They stop attacking their husbands with sex, which is what they should do because they're not attracted to them anymore. Why aren't they attracted to them anymore? Because after a long time, for many people, the relationship has gotten boring. And then they make excuses like, well, a relationship's change, which is true. And there's positive sides in the changes of the relationship as time goes by. You need to support and honor your wife no matter what. No matter if she takes care of herself or not, you need to support and honor her. You need to treat women well and you need to lift them up. But what happens is that there's no jealousy. Like, for example, when a man's dating and he's dating lots of women, is he more attractive if he's going on dates with lots of women? maybe reserving himself for sexuality or whatever, right? Heaven sounds fun. I might become a Christian again. That'd be a yeah, your balls of you would soar. He says, "Oh, that woman, you lose a little bit, right?" But no, let me explain it. The attraction goes away. So men, what they do is they play these games and they try to keep attraction going. And over a long time, it is nearly impossible to maintain attraction in a relationship. So what happens to a girl when a guy is dating lots of women, maybe he's saving himself for the right one, but he's dating lots of women to check them out, right? All of a sudden, you come into his life and you want to get him away from those girls, so you perform. Does that make sense? You want to get him away from the girls, so you perform, right? So what happens is that polygamous relationships, right? Because I'm telling you, there's going to be way more women in heaven than men. Okay? And there's going to be way more women on the earth than men very soon. Why? Because the mark of the beast is going to reduce humanity by a third, and that third of humanity is going to be all men, and it's a never-ending cycle, and it'll keep reducing humanity down until there's only one man for every 7 women, and then nobody is going to be able to have these opinions that this is not okay. Well, they'll be able to have the opinions, but it's like, hey, you want sex, you got to deal with it. There's lots of women and there's one man. That creates attraction to where women are constantly competing for the attention. You say that's harsh on women. No, it's not, because women, for example, in the Torah, lesbianism is not against the Torah. Why is it not against the Torah? It's because lesbianism in family systems amongst the women is not evil. I'm talking about in family systems, not your kids and stuff. I'm talking about your concubines and wives, because they all get checked out by doctors and interviewed by rabbis and bishops or whatever, and made sure they've got no diseases and make sure that their genetics are pure. And normally they were virgins, right, in the old times, but this is going to change a little bit in the future because of there's just going to be an amount of women that is way bigger than the amount of men, right? And so what'll happen is that they'll form sexual bonds, and it's going to be fine. It's actually fine. It's not forbidden. It does not spread disease like homosexuality and sodomy does. It's not forbidden. It's not against enlightened teachings. Okay? There's nothing wrong with it in the spiritual kingdoms if it's done in proper context within family systems, right? So what happens is the women who are making love with each other, they're fine and they're happy, and they have tons of space from their husband. They have tons of space from their husband. They have tons of space. The women have tons of space. What I mean? Well, the man can, he's going and visiting his other wives for a week, and all of a sudden the wife is like alone and can breathe for the first time in 10 years, right? And then, while he's gone, she gets jealous and a little mad, and then starts sending him loving messages and trying to capture his attention all the time. And now all of a sudden the romance is back in the relationship, right? This is the true order of the patriarchal relationships, right? They're the best things ever, and everyone is treated very well. So the Islamic peoples, again, they do polygamy. Doesn't the Jewish nation do it like they do? I don't know that polygamy is illegal, for example, in Israel. I guess it probably is, but I don't really know. But I don't think so. But the Islamic peoples, right? They're going to have lots of wives. You say, well, that isn't allowed in America. Well, if you're American, you want to have lots of wives, go to an Islamic country and get married there. Doesn't matter. You have as many wives as you want in an Islamic country. They'd do it. There's other countries too. Here's the thing, right? People are trying to stop the truth all the time, right? We're commanded to multiply and replenish the earth. Multiply and replenish the earth. We're commanded to multiply. No. Homosexuality means sexual attraction. The same sex. Homo means the same. It does in modern language. Oh, I'm going to try this comment. It does in modern language, dude. It didn't in the Torah, because when they're talking about the homosexuality in Sodom and Gomorrah, they say the men of the city did wickedly. The men. They never referred to the women in the city, right? So I'm referring to the Torah definition. I'm not referring to the modern definition, okay? So when I refer to homosexuality, right, I refer to it as masculine thing. I refer to lesbianism as a feminine thing. No lesbian acts were forbidden in the Torah. Not all homosexual acts were, but that doesn't mean it's right, because it's diseased. It's diseased behavior. It comes from genetic disease 100% of the time. There's zero homosexuality at all. Zero, 100% zero in the celestial kingdom. It is unnatural. It is wicked, and the women don't like it, and there's lots of women there, and then people are fine. So my point with this is that this allows a man to be a man, right? And Islam does that. So are they really treating their wives bad? I've met Islamic guys with lots of wives who treat all of their wives better than most American men treat their one wife. I'm serious. I have. Now, this isn't true of everyone, but this is like, I've met very righteous Islamic families with lots of wives, and they treat their wives like they're the sunshine of the day. They romance them. They're constantly in love. They're constantly passionate. They're fulfilled. They're happy. They're having tons of sex. They have lots of babies, right? And people are looking at the Islamic nation and their growth as a problem. It's only a problem because other people are not having as much babies as them people. That's the only reason it's a problem. If everyone had as much babies as the Islamic people did, it would balance it out, wouldn't it? Yes, it would. It would completely balance it out. So when people they get a Star of David tattoo on their heart and they walk on the other side of the street. Somebody said, what do I think about anal sex? Well, it depends on whether between a man and a woman, or a man or a woman, or a man and a man. A man and a man, it would be evil. A man and a woman, I would say there's nothing wrong with it whatsoever. Right? But I'd have to look at the oral tradition and stuff like that. But I promise there's nothing wrong with it. Right? My point with all of this that I'm sharing with you is that, very simply, this. Islam is a righteous nation. In my opinion, the Islamic nations are far more righteous in nearly every way than America. I think they're more righteous than Israel is right now, in general. Now, this is not always true. I'm talking about how strict and how obedient they are, which is a different teaching as well. I think Jews are very righteous people as well. Generally, right? They're more righteous than Christians by a long shot. By a long shot, they're more righteous. Now you say, well, Christian is righteous because they're walking in the righteousness of Jesus. That's true. It's also a cop-out if you use that too much. Right? The Islamic peoples are a righteous, loving, whole, good-hearted, incredible, kind, honorable, beautiful, prosperous, hardworking, intelligent, reproductive nation of Allah. The Elohim of Islam. I think we should give them a sin. Dude, options. Stop. Elohim, what are you talking about, dude? Elohim isn't. Well, Elohim isn't Satan. Other than that, he owns the consciousness of the universe, and so therefore he also has the consciousness of Satan. Read my blog, theteachingskingdavid.com. You have no idea what you're talking about. You're believing this crap from New Age hippies that are. You know where they're getting this information from? Like stuff like ayahuasca and whatnot. What you say? Well, what about ayahuasca? What's the problem with that? Ayahuasca is actually very. She's a very glorious. Fallen spirit. She loves her husband Satan very much. Now, at a later time, I'll deliver ayahuasca, and there's only one place that ayahuasca can be delivered, and that is in the celestial room with the Mormon prophets and apostles, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And they would all have to take a brewed, purified form of ayahuasca there, and that would allow the spirit of ayahuasca to go into the celestial room and escape into the celestial kingdom. And there she will wait. Check this out. She will wait for Lucifer to be delivered. Elohim declared himself a god just like Satan. No, here's the thing. Satan, right? The only thing Satan wants, and if you're a Satanist, listen to me. If you know anybody that's a Satanist, say if they're a Satanist, they who are, listen to me. Okay? Listen to me very carefully. The only thing that Satan wants, Satan is not just Lucifer. I met a guy that was an incarnation of the consciousness of Lucifer. I was telling my brother about it today. He tried to give me an object and I did not accept it. Right? Tell that to all the people butchered in the name of Allah. Butchered? Dude, first of all, Allah isn't Elohim. He is Allah Mazarek, the Elohim Tetragrammaton of righteousness. That's what he is. Right? I'm not talking about radical Islamic terrorists who are blowing things up for no reason. Right? To them, it's not no reason, though. There's a reason they're doing it. And we're not listening to them, so it keeps getting more and more and more severe because they need people to wake up and realize that if America and all the other countries in the world don't step into righteousness, that Satan will utterly destroy them from off the face of the earth. So here's the thing, right? Satan only wants one thing: to drag you down to hell and to burn you alive for 1 trillion to 133 trillion years. It's where he gets nearly all of his power. Nearly all of his power comes from that. That's all he wants. Right? Satan wants us to think that we can become gods to overthrow the evil and only one true God. Yeah, that's what he wants to think. Here's the thing. We become gods and we're in submission to the Father. That's how the celestial kingdom works. We all eventually become gods. All of us. Even the people that get cast into hell eventually become gods. It just takes them a long time. Their punishment plus 100 trillion years of pure righteousness. Okay. So here's the thing. Mormons don't believe in hell. Yes, they do. They believe in outer darkness. Right? So here's the thing. Here's the thing that you want to understand. We can become gods is only one God. No, we're gods in submission to the Father. People misunderstand this. Moses was referred to as an Elohim. God said, let us make man in our own image. Who's the us? The idea that there's only one God comes from fallen language. However, there's only one Elohim. There's only one Allah. There's only one Buddha. There's only one Krishna. There's only one. One God. This makes sense? This comes from the Tower of Babel. Anyways, I'm going to go. I got to talk to somebody.